final tutorial for our book cover project, and today we're going to be adding all of the text. So we need to add a title, we need to add a title in the spine, and then we need a short description on our back cover. So to begin with, I will add my title, and my title is Discover Dinosaurs. And I have already pre-selected a font for that, and that is this one, Trebuchet MS, and I'm going to be using bold. And I think that I will use a yellow color to kind of tie into the yellows going on here in some of my trees. So let me just go ahead and grab a yellow color. And I'll start by typing in Discover. And I'm going to do Discover and Dinosaurs separate because I want dinosaurs to be under the big T-Rex, and I'm also going to add an effect to that. So let me go ahead and get this sized and placed where I want it. I want this title to be nice and big and really stand out on that cover. Okay, that looks pretty centered, and it's also between the two dinosaurs, and I like that. And I also want to add a drop shadow to this, so let me go ahead and do that. And you can make these settings whatever you want. So I am going to put this on a normal blend mode. I want a black drop shadow. I'll go ahead and move my opacity all the way up to 100. For the angle, I'll make that 100 also. The distance, I will make 5. I will keep the spread at 0. And the size, I will make 3. And say OK. So that adds a subtle drop shadow and just really lets that title pop. And again, you can create whatever settings you want in your drop shadow. So whatever you think looks good on your cover. Okay, now let me go ahead and type in dinosaurs, which will go down here. And let me get that sized correctly. I'm also going to add a warp text effect on dinosaurs. So that is up here on my tools option panel. I'm going to click on that. And the warp effect I want is arc lower. And I'm going to set the bend to 70. Now, I want to add the same drop shadow, and remember, if you already have a drop shadow that you've created, all you need to do is go to that layer and right click on the layer and copy the layer style. Then go to your new layer, right click and paste layer style. That way you know you'll get that exact same effect. Okay, now with this warp text, it made the dinosaurs text look much bigger than Discover. So I'm going to transform that down a bit. And when I originally created this book cover, I noticed that the claw right here lined up nicely with this D on dinosaurs. And so what I did is I made it so that the claw was coming through the D. And I did that pretty easily by using my layer mask. So I will do the same thing here. So what I want to do is I want to take that Dino 1 T-Rex and move it above my dinosaurs text layer. And you'll notice what that does. And then I'm just going to work on that same layer mask to show and hide whatever parts of that title I want showing and hiding. If you had me for Exploring Technology, you may recall this trick. If I want to select just the text, I go to the text layer, holding Command, click on the capital T, and what that does, if you look over here, it just selects the text that's on that layer, and that's going to make it easy for me to reveal what I want to reveal and hide what I want to hide. So let's first start with the reveal, and that would be white. And again, I'm on the layer mask. And I'm just going to reveal everything. Actually, I need to be on black because I want to hide everything. Okay, so starting by hiding everything on the Dino layer, which is revealing my text, and then I'm going to switch to white and zoom in on the parts where I want to show the dinosaur and hide the text. Okay, so that just adds a nice little touch on my particular design. This may not apply at all to what you have going on. It just happened to fit with mine to have part of the dinosaur in front of that and with the claw coming out like that. So I did notice that because I moved that T-Rex above the dinosaurs layer, it's affecting the Discover. So I'm going to just fix that by moving Discover above that. Because I really don't want to hide anything on that, and I may nudge that down just a little bit. Okay, so that's looking pretty good for the title. Okay, next the spine, and I'm going to use the same font for the spine, and I'm going to put the title on there. So in the spine, you'll always see the title, and then sometimes you'll see the name of the author. So if you want to put your name in there for the author, that would be a good time to do that. So activating my type tool, making sure I'm on Trebuchet MS Bold still. I'm using that same yellow color, and this time I'm going to type it in one word. I'll lower my font size and type in Discover dinosaurs and accept that. And then I'm going to right click on that and paste layer style once more, Command T, and I'm going to come outside of my text and tilt this. I want to hold the Shift key as I'm tilting because that will help it snap at exactly 90 degrees. If I'm not holding the Shift key, then I'm playing a guessing game where it's lined up perfectly at 90 degrees. So make sure you're holding Shift for that. I'm going to move it in place. You always want the beginning of your text to be at the top, so don't tilt it so that it reads from bottom to top. You want it to read from top to bottom. And I need to size this down quite a bit. It's coming outside of my spine, so I want that to fit in nicely. And if I were to put my name in there, my author's name, I would make it even smaller and fit the author's name down here after the title. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so let's say I'm going to do that. I'm going to get off of my text layer, and I'm going to make the type even smaller, and maybe I'll just have my last name on this. Okay, so right click, paste layer style, Command T, again holding Shift, and I want the T at the top. And this would go under the title down here. And I need to make sure it's up inside that bleed area. And that makes me want to move my title up and possibly make it slightly smaller, but let me move it up first. And I will decrease the size just a little bit. Doesn't need to be quite that big for the spine. If you're having trouble placing your text, to make sure that you're not in Snap, so go to View and make sure that Snap is not on. And the last thing we need to do is the back cover. So on the back cover, you're going to want to have a brief description of what's inside your book. Now, I did this already in Microsoft Word. There's a couple advantages to that. Let me go ahead and open that document. Okay, the first advantage is that you can get this center aligned easily and spell check. That's the main thing, because you know Photoshop really doesn't have a good spell check. It has a limited spell check that if you know how to use it, you can try to use it, but it's nowhere near as good as what you're going to get in Microsoft Word. And spelling does count on this. So remember, you're creating a book cover for Publish, and you want to make sure that everything is spelled correctly, that you don't have any fragments, and that your punctuation is good. So Microsoft Word really helps with that. And then you just need to copy, select all your text, Command C to copy it. And then I'm going to go ahead and place a text box in this. I'm going to get off of my text layer because I don't want to alter that at all, and creating a text box. And then Command V to paste. Okay, I'm going to undo that. And this time I'm going to bring my font size down to about 14. Then Command V. Okay, so that's better. But I still don't have all my text in there. It looks like my leading, that is the spaces between the layers of text, is really large right now. So if that happens to you, go to Window, Character, and here is your leading right here, and my leading is set to 36, and I'm going to put it on auto. That'll put it at an ideal leading for this font. And I may need to do that a couple times until all my text is in there. And that leading may be altered or may be off because we changed that when we were creating things like the magazine cover. And accept. Okay, so that looks pretty good. The only thing I don't like about that is that the word life ended up all by itself down there, which really doesn't look great. So let me go ahead and get into my text box. And when you're working with the text box and you pull this, you're not stretching the text. That's only when you're doing a transformation. Okay, so that looks a little bit better so that life is not down there by itself. The other thing, when you're working on a cover, whether it's a magazine cover, a book cover, you don't want to have hyphens in your bodies of text. It's okay to have hyphens in the main text body inside the book, but you wouldn't want that on the cover. So make sure you're not ending up with hyphens over here. So I have this all center aligned. I don't have any weird things going on like life by itself or large indentations over here on this side or this side. So it all looks pretty well even. It is difficult to read, however, so I want to do a couple things. Instead of adding a drop shadow, I'm actually going to add a stroke to this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my add a layer style, but instead of drop shadow, I'm going to stroke. And a stroke is just color that goes all the way around. I'm going to position that outside so you can see how this goes all the way around the text, just like that. And I could play with the color. Maybe white looks better. White looks okay. It's a little bit large. You do not want to overdo it with a stroke. So that looks better than a 4. Sometimes I see people get crazy and do stuff like this. That's just too much. So that would be for a very specific thing that you're doing. So I'm going to try 2. I'm going to go back to black and see which one I like better. I think black actually looks better for my particular book cover, so I'll go ahead and keep it on black. So there are a couple things you can do for the readability of your text. Because we decided to, for this particular book cover, choose several images and blend them all together, we have a pretty busy background. So the first thing you can do is you can add a stroke or a drop shadow, whichever one works best. I think a stroke, since it goes all the way around the letter, really helps with readability for big bodies of text as opposed to a title. The other thing you can do is you can add a shape behind this. So let me show you what that looks like. So if I go to my shape tool, You can use a rectangle or an oval. So let's start with a rectangle just so we can see what this looks like. I'm going to put myself on default black and white, and I'll make my shape white to start with. I want to make sure I'm on shape, not path. So I have a white fill with no stroke. And I'm just going to make a shape that covers my text just like that. Okay. And I need to make sure that shape is underneath the text, but I also want to lower the opacity. I want to be able to see those dinosaurs under there. So just something just like that. And I can click off of that layer to show that. Okay, so let me show you the same thing, but this time I'll make an oval shape. So I'm going to start kind of in the center, start pulling my oval, and then I'm going to hold Option, and Option will keep it in the center. But keeping in mind I can move it at any point after this as well. Again, we want this to go under our text. I can use the Move tool to kind of move that around. And we're going to also lower the opacity. Okay. So that also helps with readability of that text on your back cover. It's really important that your reader can read that text pretty easily. You don't want them to have to strain their eyes in order to read that. The last thing I'm going to do, and this would be an optional step, is I'm going to add a title back here that just says kids to grab the kids' attention so that they can really see like, oh, this looks like a fun book. And for this, I'm going to use the font called Bubble Gum because it's kind of childlike and it will grab the children's attention and it's bubbly and just kind of fun. So I'm going to type in kids with an exclamation mark. And I will transform that and tilt it just to add to the fun of it and place it right here. And I also want to add a stroke to this, and I think I'll add a green stroke to tie into my dinosaurs. So going to my layer styles, stroke, and grabbing a fun green color for this. I'm just going to click around till I get something kind of nice and bright like that. And I want to make this a lot bigger. Remember I said not to get too crazy on this unless you have a purpose. Well, this might be a better purpose for this because we're really trying to grab these kids' attention and make this look really bubbly and fun. Okay, so that's it, and that looks really good. Just double check everything. Check your spelling, make sure your layers are all labeled properly and in the proper order, and then you can save and submit.